좀 내내 대신 뭐라 좀 뭐야 또 뭐라 또 그래서
大家就是要供曼达拉，供曼达拉就是说为了听法，我得供曼达拉，那曼达拉曼达光是短的那个。
Now you, in order to receive the teachings, you need to please offer a mandala and mandala can offer of the brief version.
Oh 도마 결혼소래 현재 제약이 되네 모샘 조관련수 되스 모샘 조관련수 현재 조관련수 되나 모샘 조관련수 조샘 조관련수 예요 모샘 조관련수 되나 원생제 합자라 되네 로바다 로바 상마다는 지기 되네 렌수 제당 되네 모샘제 합자라 로바는 지 되네 런수니요 되나게 알아가서 봐봐야 되네 모샘제 합자라 로바다 로바 탐세지 되네 셔셔야 되네 모샘 조관련수 되스
今天要给大家讲的就是说圆菩提，圆菩提跟这个行菩提两种当中呢，就是说今天要给你们讲的是，这个圆菩提跟行菩提它有分为两种，就是说圆菩提的这个依轨啊，就是怎么样修这个圆菩提。圆菩提里面分为两种，一种叫做它叫了你把你学出有能力就是这个有能力去学出这个菩提心的方法，没有能力两种有修这个圆菩提的这个方法。我呢就是今天我们一般的情况有这种两种的方式，有能力跟没有能力的两种方式，对学出学这个菩提心。那圆菩提，然后行菩提也是一样的。不过呢，今天要给大家讲的就是说共同的就是说不是这两者，就是共同都可以去修，共同可以去修这个圆菩提跟行菩提的这个依轨方面去接受这种共同的一个方法。
This morning, as requested, the topic of teaching, will be on how to generate the enlightened mind. In other words, how to generate bodhicitta. And as for this practice, where one, for the welfare of all beings, intend to achieve the sublime enlightenment, there are two ways. First is by way of the aspirational enlightenment mind. The second is the engaging enlightenment mind. And then as for the actual taking of the vow or dedicating oneself, in the case of the second, which is the engaging enlightenment mind, there are two ways. One is where a person is able to abide or train on the bodhisattva training, such as the six perfections and so forth, to interpret. And the other is where the person is not able to train on the bodhisattva trainings, and through that way does the generating of the enlightenment mind. And here, of those two types this morning, the teaching will be of the enlightenment mind generating in the way where both those who are able and those who are not able, in other words, for everyone is open to be able to receive and do the training.
Oh yeah. That is that general Masha, the naked token by Shatari. I go getting that. On the young, the nation should be simply a worship. Any side of your race. And then is that on what any side at the danger to send your gun and go to Goyori. And then is that general worship is only as there is state no the The line near but there is some ins. Near gun jiglan and good long down. Sunday, something she thinks Chawakun, when Bachawajin to Dojo Nes, Yansan could do Yambo Lemba, Najurum Yajan, Yanin Dead ship, and the check out the Jang Salos, or Somban Hamishin Jede. Taman also maybe Terry Sten said, Mokomba Jelly, Terry Denny, Terry Sten. Mokomba Jekon Chile, Kesona, any church hook up San in Mewashi, Ramon San in Mewashi. Then I was that Mokomba Jelly, Tarsona, Tawa Jetson, Tamarazo, Samayori. There is that Tawase Garasena, Churchill, Tawa Yoba, Rama Yoba, and the Chile City Oris. And I is that in the way that is doing about the Shitak Tunchibu. And he is in the village and Haparis, I'll let this you up.
然后我们要建立一个这么一个菩提心然后就是你们都是旧的弟子，应该大家都知道什么是菩提心所以呢，我们一定要从内心当中建立一个这么一个菩提心。要建立这个菩提心的话，当然也要从 难得下满人生开始，然后这样一步一步的把它这个菩提心给建立起来。那么就是说刚才所念的，就是宗喀巴祖师说的，就是说我们下满人生是非常难得入这个摩尼宝，然后非常的难得，来之不易，然后呢也容易失去如闪电等等。然后呢就是说得到这种的非常难得的这种下满人生之道的时候呢，就我们一定要去争取它的亲要。然后呢就是说这一系列有讲到，就是说宗喀巴祖他提到嘛，就是说我也是这样的去修的，我是如此修的，然后你们也是同一样的从下满人生开始去修。
Then here, most of you present here seem to be senior students who have been in contact with the teaching and to interpret, have been coming to receive teachings from His Eminence Khyentse Rinpoche over the years. So in that sense, most of you here appear to be senior students. Anyway, at this point, at the beginning of the teaching, please, you all need to adjust your mind in a very good thinking in line with the enlightenment mind or the Chitta. And as for that, to begin with, you will need to do the reflection on the greatly meaningfulness of precious human rebirth and how difficult it is to attain and yet how easy it is to perish, as Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa says in the lines of experience, that this basis of leisure and endowment is more than a wish-fulfilling gem. It is difficult to find, easy to lose. Therefore, one should take or extract essence out of it. Otherwise, it would be like an empty grain, which is simply a husk left and nothing inside. Anyway, that is the advice given. And there, the human rebirth or human present existence is characterized by the leisures. What does leisure mean? It is a leisure that is free of 8 non-leisure states, whereby we have the ability to do Dharma practice. So one needs to please reflect on that, and in brief one needs to think how such a precious rebirth we have attained, which is far more precious and valuable than a wish-granting gem.
我老说，他有些人努力，他好是他通办的的是呢，他有些人努力是也从呢，另外说现在了，有那老学本身说很多个光没有的，那些都没有的，些都没有的毛多个，这个大家什么盘下了，当大咖啡些都没有嘛了吧？但是这没问题，定的当然说小要不这个人呢，前帮嘛从头门着吧，等着他当没有官方头对呀，没定的些头。 코로나에 탈와지 제게는 네 때문에 제토 장제기 공방 도처와지 제게는 네 때문에 또 제토와 현상人努力了解。
然后刚才前面我录掉一点，就是说我们想得到的就是发现一下就是说我们所有的条件都居住了，然后呢就是说违缘已经全部除掉，然后呢就是说机缘全部居住，主要是叫做发现下来。 下来，然后呢，就是说，现在有讲到，就是说我们，形容我们这个下满人生呢，就远远超过千千万万的这个摩尼宝。那意思就是说，我们用摩尼宝的形容呢，就是说如意摩尼宝嘛，就是说我们这个所得到的下满人生是远远超过。为什么呢？因为我们用这个我们现在所拥有的这个下满人生，去实现解脱轮回。 然后呢，就是得到阿罗汉的果啊，然后就是成佛等等，都是可以用这个身体可以去实现，所以呢，叫做用摩尼宝去。
Now, when it is mentioned that our present rebirth as a human with leisures and endowment is far more valuable and far more precious than the wish-granting gem, how it shows that, for instance, in this life, no matter how much wealth you have, no matter however material possession we have, they cannot compare with the greatly potential capability of our present rebirth as a human, because based on this human body or human existence, one can achieve in, say, this life's major aspirations and projects, for next life, one will be able to achieve if one wishes to have a higher rebirth as a human or as a celestial being that can be achieved as well on the basis of this precious human body or existence. One can achieve the goal of attaining liberation as well on the basis of this precious human rebirth or this human existence. One can achieve even the state of Buddhahood. So in such a way, it really is far more precious than a wish granting. Those who are outside, can you hear? No.
No.
然后就是这刚才就是说我们得到这个下面人生的意义非常重大的意思，然后就是有接下来要讲就是下面人生得到的这个比喻上难得，然后呢它的下面人生的这个因难得，它的体性难得，这方面接下来要讲。
So that covers the greatly meaningfulness of the precious human rebirth. Next is that this rebirth has as well the attribute or the quality as difficult to get, difficult to attain. How it is difficult to attain? It is by three ways. Difficult to attain in terms of cause, difficult to attain in terms of example or analogy, difficult to attain in terms of the very nature of the precious human rebirth.
然后第二个就是要讲到就是容易毁灭，然后容易失去嘛。这个呢，就是说我们无始以来呢，就是说比起来无始以来，我们身是容易的旋转这样去这种的角度去想的话呢，一生呢就是好像3天一样，非常短的。我们的一生其实是非常非常短的，所以非常容易失去。非常容易失去这个下面。
So at the end, the added part advice was the translators please speak louder, otherwise we won't hear. And now, as for the greatly meaningfulness, it was completed. Then the next just ahead that was completed was the difficult to attain. Then the next in line with Jeremiah's quotation cited earlier is the easy to perish nature of our precious human rebirth. Now, as for the easy to perish, easy to lose, it is like the lightning in the sky. Now, lightning in the sky is something which we conventionally can observe as a flashing type of natural occurrence of phenomena that is called lightning. How, when we apply it to our present thinking is, we think, oh, we're going to live for so long a time into the future, but really, we have had countless rebirths in the past compared to that long or that many rebirths we have had and that long duration of existence we have. Compared to that, this life is such a short moment, as if like a second, as if like a lightning in the sky. In such a way, it has the nature of, although meaningful, although difficult to attain, yet it is as well easy to lose.
뭔가 차와전도 도주네 양산군도 님보래 바고 손대 삼내에서 단서 셴마다 봐도 또 채와인 바다 예 가와인 바다 저가와인 바다 이제 손대 삼내 야오시 삼로 당내에서 손대 삼내에서 제대 자와 군 뭔가 차와전도 도주네 해서 당으로서 세대 이제 땡게 샤와 비게 양보네 봐 뭔가 차와서 되서니다 내가 바빠디 도수제대 고사로 말로 내 마음도 바빠도 발라바게 나로서야 뭐도 뒤에서 내 도수 시작했더니 바빠가면 바빠게 개원나죠. 말아서 치유년 모델 되니 세대 자와 반드시 제원나요. 한 동네와 얼마 차가 나오지 그래서 얼마 차가 준다. 또 저네 다든지 임바데 말아서 양보지 하고现양산군도 신용보낸 거 그죠.
然后我们得到这种的要知道，就是说它的意义重大，非常的难得，而且呢就是非常容易失去这个香港人生这方面呢，我们一定要非常细节的去认识、去证悟、去明白。同时呢，第二个阶段我们要知道的就是说，我们所得到的这个香港人生呢，就是这里形容就是那个米呀、米的那个壳。那个农夫他把米那个打好了以后呢，就那个用风一吹的时候，米掉下来。不过那个它的壳就会那个从那个风把它会吹走，所以是不需要的丢的嘛。就是我们的身体就是入这个米的那个壳所以呢，最后当我们遇见死亡的时候呢，就是说根本就是没有用的就全部都在后面所以呢，这方面这个我们要进一步去了解。
So then, continuing in the earlier quotation from Jeremiah's advice is that having reflected, having done the thinking on those nature of the human rebirth, what that part of line means, having done reflection, it means having done reflection on the great meaningfulness of human rebirth, on the difficult to attain nature of it, and as well easy to lose nature of it. Then the next line thereafter says, all mundane activities should be seen as a blowing of a husk. Now, as for the blowing of a husk is as demonstrated physically, that if you have a grain of rice which has no sort of a grain inside, and when wind blows, or if a farmer does the blowing of the grains, such as rice in this example, then all is driven by the wind. Therefore, nothing is left that is worth eating, only a husk remains. Similar to that is the reality about our this conventional mundane activities. Because of these very reasons, therefore, the next line then in the teaching says, day and night, in all times, one should draw essence out of this human rebirth.
오야다 난정의 경량례에 따라 제스 다른도 체경도 경사로스 나저는 뭐 신경 양례된 데서 제와요 난정의 경량례에 따라 제 다른도 체경도 경사로 지나서 달반동의 지인은 난 양례 다가장 제고래 산도 체경도 경사로 나저라서 되는 제소소
所以就是说我刚才有后面提到，就是说入那样的，就好像入这个密克这样。所以呢，就是说当你拥有这个香港人生的时候，要好好的去利用就是昼夜嘛，每天晚上要精进努力的去修这个我们的补充。然后宗喀巴祖师有提到，就是说我本人就是怎么修，然后呢得到这种的解脱。那么就是你这个如果假如你是有心想解脱的话呢，你也有一样的这样去修。
And then in the lines of experience on this particular verse, the actual concluding two lines this way, I, a yogi, have practiced in this way. By that, it refers to Jeremiah Tsongkhapa in his own personal experience as practitioner have done the practices in such way, so it's referring to himself. Then the next line there says, you, the one who aspire for liberation, I suggest or advise that you also accordingly do the practice, in which case the advice is given out towards the recipient of the instruction of lines or spirits.
我呀，到人生工作，人我连嘛不是，像人我的个人是呢，但是人我人的那个老是上去去帮忙投呀投钱呀，上去帮忙投呀的人我人的些，那马上呢，那个老是说可拉来他呀，他别帮忙投呀的那人我人的些，那马上呢，他叫我什么马上都没着，连到他当没有光投把的投把是这样的。 연구 탐바데 오다 연구联盟 연구 때 교성질 연구 섬들이라
然后昼夜要取那个下半人参的这个心药，白天晚上我们要用一切的方法要取得这个下半人参的心药。那指的就是说最大的心药呢，就是说用这下半人参，然后修佛陀的果，就像用这个成佛。然后呢，就是中等的呢，就是说得到这个解脱轮回。最普通的呢，就是来世不堕落到这个三恶趣这个就是3种的不同的心药。
Then the last line in that verse says, day and night at all times one needs to extract essence. Now as for what is referred to by essence, there are 3 levels of essences. The best level of essence is to achieve the state of Buddhahood. If one is not able to aim and be able to achieve that, then little below that is the intermediate or medium level of essence, which is to be free oneself from samsaric sufferings and in its place to achieve liberation. The last level of essence, if one is not able to do, is to at least ensure one does not in next rebirth falls to the 3 lower ranks of suffering, instead attains higher rebirth as a human or celestial beings, and in this way there are those 3 essences.
我呀，到这是到东部通过的人国联盟了，7万整股7万，而且是那70年的，给我7万个的你刚刚没用呀，另外主要个特别巧了哇，7的刚刚没用呀，另外主要个特别热点的哇，这是的7万马占了，你学这个嘛的，7万马占了，你学这个嘛的。 那因此，当알아서 체화도 짠 거고요. 체화 짠을 세야 돼. 알아서 기회 쉬고 때가 시야에 맞게 그만 하고요. 산이 쉬고 말이 되는 장이 산이 고마. 얘네야 남친 예배. 당 알아서 단다 쉬고 말이 단다 쉬고 말이 단다 쉬고 말이 돼. 장장 장기요. 제상 상당 절대 제만이 예대 문도 강원 들매배 상기 체가 말바 체매도라 바바 레스. 다 처음을 잡아 남친 예매대야 보장 거고요. 저와 전야지 요로와 저와 맞잖아 저장 그 말이스. 저 맞잖아 저지그 말이스. 이제 저와 장 거리스. 저와 전에 세야 제가 마시게 됐는데 지 말이스. 그때 관계하고 그랬어. 남친 예매대 장 거고요. 그랬어. 남친 예매대 장 받을 때는 다 저지약 상론 거고요.
然后就是讲到我们要取得这个心药。 那我们要取到这个下半人生的心药的话呢，那当然就是我们要首先要知道这个死亡，要想到这个死亡。那就是说，我们没有想到这个死亡的话，你根本就是没有办法去想到，就是说修行，就是修佛法，那是不会想到的，那就是没办法。所以就是说，我们想到死亡，为什么呢？就是我们要修的原因，就是来世生世的次第的这个逆苦，然后得到快乐，来世。 这样的原因呢，就是说我们要修这个佛法。那今生的快乐呢，就是我们所做的一切的世间法，就是说我们在修这个今生的快乐嘛。那么来世生世的快乐呢，就是靠我们的这个佛法来去建立这个离开这个痛苦，然后建立这个快乐嘛。所以就是说，这样的就是说，我们真的想取到这个下半人生的这个心药的话，我们要知道无常。然后呢，就是说死亡那。 更重要的就是说，每个人都知道生下来以后呢就会死。不过就是说，我们会觉得今天不会死，明天也不会死，明年也不会死，就是说我们觉得死亡是很遥远的。所以有这种的思想的原因，就是我们就不会想到去修法。所以就是说，我们这里要知道的就是说，这时期不定随时都会爆发这个道理呢，我们要非常 去自己的去。
Now, in order to draw essence, what is required is to have awareness of death. The word is the awareness of death, meaning death and impermanence. So to draw essence out of present human rebirth, what is crucial is to have an awareness of death and impermanence. Generally, the means by which a person applies to achieve happiness and to remove sufferings for next life, that means is Dharma. And for this life, in this life, to achieve happiness and to remove suffering, the means applied is called mundane. So there's these two huge different perspectives and the means of applying the method in that way. Now, as for having awareness of death and impermanence, if one doesn't have it, then what happens is it causes the person not to have the mind thinking of the need to do Dharma practice. So in such a way, without awareness of death and impermanence, there will be no awareness of the need to practice Dharma, the need to do spiritual practices. Now, as for the awareness of death and impermanence, well, that we all are going to die is, everybody knows that. So that part is not difficult. But the difficult part is that when one is going to die, to have that awareness is difficult because in our innate, ordinary person's conventional thinking, we think, oh, we are going to die. But having accepted or having understood that, we still have a huge, intense thinking, oh, I'm not going to die now, I'm not going to die now, I'm not going to die now. So that sort of a clinging to persistent, still going to live is there with most people. So for that to be removed as an antidote against that, one needs to have a good thinking on the awareness of the time when one is going to die is uncertain. So the topic of uncertainty of the time of death is very important. And then for emphasis reason, this part of the instruction or advice was repeated. And the main part is that to have awareness of that is we all are able to recollect, but we have difficulty when we're going to die. That sort of awareness is not there with most people. So that second part, the time that uncertainty about the time when we are going to die is where we need to focus on.
Oh yeah, the chewa tennes. The chewa tennes. The chewa ni mo de. 가르그 판기 오래서는 쇼그 판기 오래 모두 가지고 이제 가양 파양 내봐 저널로서 가서 요네 판통배와 예 콜로 반드시 요네 들 판통배와 똑권에 반드시 요네 들 판통배와 하나를 벌어서 서봐 반드시 늘때 판통배와 근데 말아서 하고 바로 되다 아마 욕샤야 모두 가지 케야산 내봐시 나도 로에 년강대 태야요 그 가르에서는 소소 냠도 너담 점마신도 냠도 정에도 대득이 개와도 그 반이도 냠도 로요 개와도 그 반이도 냠도 친네 듣과도 그 라운에 넣게요 마송에 맞추고요 개와도 그 라운에 쪽제요 대로를 야치고요 어떤 인사다 지위는 뭐데 처마도 강대양 한동 매봐도 삼로야 뭐좀 커나 처마지랑 지 차버려
然后我们真的面对这个死亡，当你真的面对死亡的时候呢，就是说能想到这一点，真正死亡你证悟了、明白了以后呢，你就会非常细节的，你会明白，面对死亡的时候，你的所有的这个一切的拥有的所有的这个财富也带不走，所有的捐授，你的捐束嘛，去你的亲戚朋友等等也带不走，然后呢，你的权威也带不走。 然后呢，最后你甚至你这个身体，你非常执着的这个身体也是会丢在后面。然后就是说，你就要带走两样，就是说善跟恶，善业跟恶业跟随着五种。那善业呢会帮助你给你往生就是善道。然后呢就是恶业呢就是说害你，然后他就把你拉到你的善恶区。所以呢就是说 我们要想到，当我们真正面对死亡的时候，能带走什么？这方面有什么非常深一点去辅导。
So having done the reflection to bring about the awareness of impermanence, awareness of death, then one needs to have the reflection that on the day of death, on the day of dying, accept Dharma, nothing else is of help, nothing else come to use, come to you of any meaning. How that sort of one needs to next think in order to have that sort of awareness. Now how accept Dharma, nothing else is of benefit, nothing else comes to use to the dying person is in this way. No matter how much wealth one has, no matter how much material possessions one has, at the time, on the day of dying, these things one cannot take along with oneself. One needs to leave them behind. Even how many marvelous, wonderful friends, relatives, family members one may have in its own context of Dharma practice, they also one cannot take along with oneself to the next life. Therefore, these also are of not substantial assistance or substantial meaning to the person on the day of dying, at the time of dying. Even say if someone has a wonderful body, a physique, marvelous physique, that also has to be left behind. Nothing else one can take. Therefore, the question arises: what then can a dying person take along with him or her after that, along into the next life? There are only two things one can take. They are either marriage, so virtuous deposit, or the negativities out of non-virtuous actions. The non-virtuous actions deposit what are called negativities. If one has more of that, then that, having accompanying the dying person, would lead the dying person, drag the dying person down to the lower ends. If the dying person happens to have more of a merit, the virtuous deposit, then that pulls or drags, in a positive sense, drags or pulls along dying person to the higher ranks. So in such a way, whatever Dharma practice one had done when one were alive, they were the only thing at the time when one is dying or hurt. Therefore, at the time, on the day of dying, accept Dharma, nothing else is of benefit. And if one has that sort of awareness, then you could relate that only Dharma is something that will help at the time of dying. If one has that, then automatically that thought would push the person, the practitioner, into doing Dharma practice.
Oh yeah, 12월도 되네 몇 대면로 개화실에 보고요. 아 개화실에 사디 만도다 된도니 마도 정말 맞죠 말이. 아 된도 당만도 관리 개화데 ramla 나오면 봐. 근데 예만나고 지순다. 아 개화 장장 사대과 사는 맹에 제연한데 되니 12월도 마송도 저거 말이 고랑서 된도도. 대과 장장 상에서 나는 된도도야 그거 저야 뭐 마송도 동배요. 아마로서 내가 많이 봐 안나올 내내에서 개화에 가서 듣듯이 대과에 개화야 돼 보면 도와지 망고신이 샤야 있어. 내가 제가 해서는 얘기 걸어지 뭐 너요 공동 공방 공제권이 저번에 가마마마 지금 이러스 야자고요. 저거에서 야자하는 데니 개화 저거 사고요나 야노 대과 저거 사고요나 마노 아 저거 세송 개발하면은 얘네 공바 세송을 차요. 공바 가르쳐 받을 반도 공바 세송을 개면은 아마 가서 받을 차요. 에 개발하면은 녀 방다 처갈 아까때 가르쳐 하셔요나. 대책이 올라. 딱 세워야 다 나도 상고실 그 당에 개감이 되는 개발하지. 개발하면 되니 고마양치 개발하면 내내서 여기 저야 되고라 사와 연사 난도서 상로 당지 발실 나 송도 타도 쳐샤 상상해 보고요. 那么说呢，蛮多人的，那你蛮松着，他个吃小三路当，那是谁说？连对我们一样。
然后我们真的面对死亡，然后死亡的时候只有法宝才能把主下面有什么这样子。然后就是前面我们讲，后面有讲到就是前面讲就是说我们真的面对死亡，然后我们死了以后呢，就是说如果结束的话呢，并不是说已经结束了死了以后我们还要继续投胎。那投胎的时候呢，也不是我们自己可以决定的，就是说没有自由，只有我们的善业跟恶业给我们决定我们的来世应该投胎在哪里。我们要继续投胎，不是已经结束了，我们要继续投胎的。然后呢，就是如果你造的业都是善业，那么就是说自然而然你就会，我们要去的地方有两个地方嘛，一个就是善道，一个就是恶道。如果你说你记都是善业的话呢，你就会往生到善道，那是很自然的。如果你是造的是全都是恶业的话，那么就是直接你死了以后呢，就会下善恶趣嘛，直接会下。然后又讲到就是说，如果你善跟恶，然后呢就是两种你一起造的话，那么就会重量来区分。如果你的善业重，那你就会往生到善道；如果你恶业重，那你就会下地狱等等的善恶趣嘛。然后呢，就是说，如果重量一样的话呢，就应该是吸气吧，就是说哪一个重，然后呢去判断，或者是有讲到就是说，然后就是前后的区分，然后最后有讲到就是最后这些都分不清楚的话，那么就是最后1分钟一刹那的时候，你接受的是善还是恶，来去决定你的来世的这个趋向。
After that, one has to take, after that, the rebirth takes place. Therefore, and that being a natural flow of existence, therefore it would mean, as for rebirth, there are two possible rebirths to the lower realms, the realms of torment, realms of suffering, or to the higher realms, the realms of happiness. Now, as whether or not between these two one is going to be reborn is determined by when one were alive earlier, whether one has done wholesome karma or one had done unwholesome karma. Therefore, the rebirth to higher realms, to the realms of happiness, and the rebirth to the realms of sufferings are determined by the wholesome karma or the unwholesome karma one had been doing. If one had been doing more, by and large, if one had been doing mostly virtuous or wholesome actions, then the next rebirth definitely would lead to realms of happiness. If one had been doing mostly all the time negative actions, unwholesome actions, unwholesome karma, then the next rebirth will be to the realms of torments, the lower realms. And then at this point, to translate third person, His Eminence Rinpoche quoted the lines from the scripture which we could not follow word by word, but meaning of which then in the commentary to be followed is with the physical demonstration, the rebirth into next life to higher realms of happiness or to the Lord is by way of scaling, weighing of the karma, the actions one had been doing when one were alive. If the scaling, the weighing, through weighing, if it is found that more of the non-virtuous, what is literally called the black karma, dark karma, then the person is born into Lawrence next rebirth. If by weighing more of the what is literally called the white karma or the wholesome karma, then the next rebirth will be to the realms of happiness. So that is determined in that way. Yet, if these are of equal portion, then the next determining measure is by way of to which of the two, the wholesome or unwholesome karma, a person has been more or familiarized with. So it is a degree of familiarity, greater or lesser, which determines the rebirth into next. If that also happens to be of equal measure, then the determining factor into next rebirth as a higher happiness realm or lower suffering realm would be determined by way of which of the negative and the virtuous karma actually were done earlier or later. So it is determined by terms of sequence of the earlier sequence or the lower sequence of the karma taken. If these as well happen to be of equal measure, then the next determining factor is by way of what karma or the action was closer, and by that it means at the time about to die, if the dying person had earlier been doing more of the negative karma, then that would determine the person's next rebirth into lower rank. Now, through all these details of thinking, we as a practitioner then needs to think that, being an ordinary person, we have really definitely been more engaged in negative, unwholesome actions. So one needs to have a come to a conclusion in one's mind, I'm now definitely going to be born into lower rebirth because of those earlier stages of measurement one would apply.
然后当这些细节我们明白了以后呢，就我们作为我们学佛的人，就马上要知道，要想到就是说我们来世的趋向，确定肯定是善恶趣，因为我们造的恶业是特别的多，所以呢自己的处境是非常危险的，真的就是我们要去明白。明白了以后呢，就是说同时也要想到，就是说如果我们这样没有不小心的话呢，这样死掉的话呢，我们就会堕落到这个善恶趣，善恶趣地狱里面的各种各样的痛苦，我们就要细点的会去思维去想。然后呢，就是这时候呢，我们就在地狱里面细节的不讲，我们就直接讲到就是说这方面我们明白了，我们接下来就是怎样从这个当中解脱呢？我们这时候就要想到，这时候能帮助我们等除了三宝之外的这个第二个，所以呢，就是说我们就皈依三宝。那你一心皈依三宝的话呢，绝对你就不需要堕落在三恶趣这方面。
Now, having come to that decision that I'm definitely going to be my next return definitely is going to be in the lower end, then one needs to follow up with the thinking, if I were to be born down there, what sort of sufferings there are. Well, matter of factly speaking, the sufferings in the lower ends are so beyond anyone's ability to bear with, so they are unbearable intensity and variety of sufferings. By this very reasoning, such a way of thinking, then one needs to do something about applying means in order not to be born into the three lower ends. And as for the means by which one ensures one is not to be born in the three lower ends, is by way of, at least at the minimum, to go for refuge to the three jewels. So at this point there was a hand gesture physically demonstrated, where then one thinks, whether happiness happens to me, whether suffering happens to me, I totally put my entire reliance and trust on you, the three jewels. Please, you know, your omniscience know my situation. May you grant me rescue from possible return into the three lower ends. It is said that if a person has such a genuine going for refuge at the time about to die, then that is a definite certainty the next rebirth would prevent the next rebirth into the three lower ends.
나 조건쇼 때 또 공개 조치해야 되지. 마성도 문어리 탑때 대과에 가와서도 내가 저 약속을 내려래 시기 답하지. 이 시기 답하가서는 요 개발할 때는 내가 대화하죠. 요 먹여와 제발할 때는 내가 동화하죠. 이 시기 답하지. 어때다 조건쇼 뭐막이 소득돼. 근데 쟤는 안 되노라 다음에 고마워.
为什么会这样呢？因为我们的皈依三宝呢，就是佛陀，就是佛宝、法宝、僧宝，就是这个佛宝呢，就是我们的在讲皈依的，就是说，僧宝就是说跟我们讲嘛，跟我们就是我们的导师嘛，这样的。然后就是佛宝，然后就是法宝，就是实际真正度我们的，然后给我们解脱的。然后就是又讲到僧宝，就是我们的主办，就帮助我们的。也就是说，为什么这个法宝呢？就是实际真正度我们的能力。那就是说，我们讲的，通过这个法宝，然后我们就会会学到善跟恶当中怎么样去舍。然后呢，就是说这方面，然后呢，就是说我们以这样的方式呢，懂得法宝以后，我们就会除掉做，就不去做造业，然后呢去修善业。那这样的呢，就是说你自然而然你就会往生到善道，不会堕落的上去。
Going for refuge is done to the three sublime fields of refuge. Buddha, who is the shower of the refuge, one who has shown the refuge. Dhamma, or the teaching, are the actual refuge. Sangha, or the realized community of practitioners, are the assistance for you in order to achieve that real refuge, the real refuge, that is the three. The Dhamma refuge. Now, as for the going for refuge, it has its precepts or the conduct of behavior in one's thinking, in one's speech, in one's behavior to follow. And there are quite a variety of ways of looking at in brief. They constitute abandoning or giving up of the negative actions and actively accomplishing of the virtues, and this would then refer in turn, this would refer to abstaining and giving up of the 10 non-virtuous actions, actively accomplishing the 10 virtuous actions. Along with that, one should have faith, believing in the infallibility of the law of karma, the factuality of the cause-effect reality. If one has, say, faith, believing in the karma, faith, believing in the infallibility of cause-effect reality, then that is at the conventional minimum level. It is the real dharma the person has in his or her mind, and if one is able to apply that sort of faith, meaning if one has, say, understanding of faith in one's mind in the working of the karma, then that ensures the person not to fall into the three lower ranks in next rebirth.
안다 변도 런시 토하래 때 사양 되는 마성도 문제를 되네 된서 산이 오만 옛날 인사다 남자들 다르래서는 레당 연농의 왕이 되네 개화된 말 레당 연농의 왕이 개화지가 너무 신체되나 동할 모두 요야 산이 오만 옛날 인사다 코로나에 타러와서 마성게 봐도 되네 동할 내마다 강성도와 조조간의 시를 깨나야 되네 동할 기랑 좀 모두 봐지 단도 대화 산이 면도 산이 오 말이스 내가 인사다 코로나에 타러와서 마셔봐 타면도 삼바지
然后呢，就是有找到这样，就是说善恶趋势嘛，就是说然后呢，就是说除掉这个造业，然后呢修善业，然后皈依三宝，那这样就是能完成到三道，那这样呢就是不是完成了？这时候我们这一次的我们思想要调整一下，光是这样也不够的，因为你这往生三道也没有用，还有三道也是属于这个轮回里面的，就是说被这个业跟烦恼这个运作当中， 是往生到三代没有问题，会掉下来。所以呢，就是说进一步的我们要思想的范围要扩大，就是说我要把不但就是要往生到三道，而且我要从轮回当中业和烦恼当中要解脱的这种的思想进一步的再扩大。
So if one is able to do such way of thinking and ensures that the next rebirth is not into the lower realms, but and because of that, even if one may achieve the next rebirth as a celestial being or as a human, would that be enough? No, that is not enough, because such a rebirth has no stability, has no reliability. Why? There's no reliability because that future rebirth as a celestial being or as a human would be a rebirth produced by the force of karma and delusions, the afflicted thought. Any rebirth that has been produced by these two factors, karma and afflicted thought, the delusions, is bound to be a rebirth of suffering. Due to such way of analytical thinking, one then needs to have a way of realizing that in all six realms of samsara, wherever we are going to be born, no matter even if it is as high a rebirth as a celestial being or a human, it is bound to be suffering full rebirth. So out of such, then one needs to next try to have a determination, wanting to do something about to liberate from the existence in all samsaric realms.
korowale tarisaya de garajesena le dang yonnom gong bi gewale tarwate na korowale tarwas le dang yonnom gong bi gewate na korwas ale yin gong de ne gewale tarwar jewala ene nyomong ge sawa kuri sawa dangzen marupadi kuri sawa de dangzen marupadi dangzen marupadi pang matul na korowale tarwa yo mari kesa dangzen marupadi kongge tapte garajesena lam haba sunde kesa ta lam haba sunna yamen chudre jene chegi na korowale tartuwa shi yungres。
然后就是讲就是解脱轮回，那指的就是说烦恼跟业障当中解脱，那叫做解脱轮回，就是从烦恼业当中解脱嘛。然后呢，就是说有这个烦恼业障的之下的那种之下的这种不胎呢，叫做轮回。这个当中还没解脱呢，就是也在轮回。所以就是说我们要从业跟这个烦恼当中要解脱。然后呢，这种要解脱的话呢，我们一定要通过就是道，这三学的道，三学道这方面，然后呢就开始去修，然后呢就这种方式的从业和烦恼当中。
So one needs to apply means by which one liberates oneself from samsara.
所以就是说，我们要真正的要从轮回当中解脱，就是烦恼与业障当中要解脱的话呢，那么就是我们要知道轮回的根呐。语调很重要，轮回的根就是说，咱这么一句话就是说，无明我知嘛，这个就是说我们的轮回的根呐。这个没有拔掉的话呢，你就是永远没有办法从烦恼和业障当中就没办法解脱轮回。
So one needs to apply means by which one liberates oneself from all realms of samsara. Now, as for the realms of samsara, it is determined or it is characterized by the nature where the rebirth, as just I have explained, is a rebirth produced by karma and afflicted thoughts, karma and delusions. Generally, by the term samsara or the cycle of cyclic existence, what it means is it means the rebirth of existence out of karma and delusions. And as for samsara, the root cause, the primary cause of samsara is the ignorance, the ego grasping, ignorance. And the method by which one needs to overcome this root of samsara, the ego-grasping ignorance, that method is the training on the three trainings, to interpret, training on morality, on meditative concentration, and on wisdom. So anyway, one needs to have those three trainings as a method or antidote against the root of samsara, ego-grasping ignorance. If one applies the three trainings, then it would be possible for oneself to be free from samsara.
我也到真的是现在让你扩罗的，他说是从那样，第三节的那他从第三节抽上去了，第三节没抽，而且呢，让你的扩罗的，他们中间用不过，怎么穷啊的嘛，都把这个现在慢慢的都跟村里剩下的说什么，当时当的扩罗的嘛，他说是中间用先把的，现在中间用先把的，他。 本来现在阿妈对了，东岸全部是不是有呢？一切的所说东岸面的就不给有嘛了。我对东岸现在这的东岸用处什么？那么他说检查了嘛，都把这他们中国人说话还是做什么的说什么？当时让给年纪他都没钱没用的，什么这样特别有嘛的，说什么？当时这里让给嘛钱用啊舍到的。 전용화 샤다인사 센디 마당 생감에 마드니 보데 전체와야 잡아르메 마이마라야 잡아르메 어때나 예바 강식 제가 되게 요샤네 랑주공고 탄탑제와 때는 시락 마랍 타차 독자 쇼를 해샤오
那这时候我们全要想到就是是不是我们自己能自己解脱轮回自己解脱那是不是这样就行了？那么这样你要想到这时候呢，我们也觉得自己解脱那是一个很自私的事情，这样也不够比如说我们知道我们的父母在非常的痛苦当中，然后自己很快乐，自己很幸福，然后呢父母很苦，那这样呢当然就是我们心不会安嘛，也不会。所以呢就我们要知道一切有情众生的故事以来，他们都做我们的父母，都做我们的母亲。那就是说他们做母亲的过程呢，就是今生的母亲跟前世的母亲的恩德是一样的，也是一样的妈妈，然后也对我们有很大的就是一样的这种的照顾，一样的这个恩德，所以是没有区别的。只是我们没有办法没有记得而已。然后呢，就是说一切有情众生就是无始以来我们在轮回里面和他舞台当中督促我们的母亲，所以呢就是我们只是自己为了自己，然后呢就自己解脱轮回，然后呢就是说。 把所有的母亲所有的一切有情众生不管他们，这种是一个非常就是说非常自私的思想，所以呢，就是这时候我们的思想的这个方面再一次的在调整过来，然后要上来进行。
Through doing practice and thinking in such a way, so far, if one has been able to then liberate oneself from samsara, would that if one had been able to liberate oneself from samsara, then of course it had only brought about samsaric freedom for oneself alone. Would that be enough? No, that merely that much is not enough. The reason for that is that has only so far been an achievement where, in terms of yourself as one single person, one merely does not have any more suffering, meaning as one has been able to liberate oneself from samsara. Yet, on the other hand, you have, starting from this life's parents and the relatives, dear ones, and so forth, all of them, if one look at in matter-of-fact way, they are still bound within the existence of suffering for samsara. And then, in terms of sentient beings, so previous life and so forth, they are all in similar situation. Now let's look at an example, say this life's one's mother or father or one's parents. Now between the two, say one is very much experiencing a hardship and undergoing so much of the suffering, undergoing so much of the suffering, then yourself as a child on the side, although you may not have any pressing problems and trouble, yet somehow parents' suffering makes your mind unhappy, makes your mind unpeaceful. So that nature is what one would have to brought about by way of reflecting on the kindness and the reality of the situation of other sentient beings. It is merely that we are not able to recall our past lives. Otherwise, all 6 species of sentient beings have been our mothers, have fostered us with kindness, like our kind mother of this life. And if there had been our kind mother in previous lives, in all that beginningless rebirth since beginningless time, then they would have been, at the time of being our kind mother, would have been equally kind as our mother of this life. So one then needs to reflect on the reality that all sentient beings have been one's kind mother. If that is the case, then yourself not to look after their welfare and simply selfish is such a meanest behavior. It's a very despicable thing to be doing for one's part.
所以就是这时候我们要讲到一切有情众生，那么就是说这个无始以来，就是他们都是我们都是我们的母亲，那他们的恩德呢，就是今生的跟今生的母亲的恩德一模一样，就是比等比的，而就是今生的母亲的恩德呢，就是我们不用进一步的去形容，大家都知道自己知道嘛。所以呢，就是说这时候我们的思想呢，就是说这些一切有情众生就是说报恩嘛，这个责任是在我的身上，我一个人就是落在我的背上，就是一个小孩呢，就是说照顾父母就是说他的责任就在这小孩的身上嘛。所以就是说就跟这差不多一样，就是说我要把一切有情众生，就是报恩的这个责任我在我的身上。那怎样去报恩呢？当然就是说不要给他们受到伤害，给他们得到快乐这就是说报恩的方式，远离痛苦嘛。所以呢，就是说这时候我们就是说再一次的一个发愿，就是说一切有情众生苦根苦因就是说希望苦根苦因离开然后呢是也同时也发愿，就是他们希望就是说早日能离开这个苦根苦因，然后呢就是能得到就是永恒的这种的快乐等等，就是这样来去去发愿跟这样的去。
So if all sentient beings have been one's kind mother, then the next is one needs to think how they have been, if they have been one's mother, then how they have been kind to you at the time when they had been my mother, they had been one's mother. And as for this part, one can relate by way of reflecting or thinking on how one's kind mother of this life had been kind to you, the manner how she has been kind to you. And as for that part, There's no need to go into detail or explain to you. You all would very well know how your mother of this life have been kind to you. So you simply apply or take the understanding and apply it to the kindness of all other sentient beings, because they had been once kind mother, and they would have equally fostered and cared for you with kindness and help, benevolence, and so forth, as mother of this life. Now, if one's old sentient beings have been so kind like the mother of one's this life, then the next is one needs to repay the kindness. One needs to think the responsibility to repay the kindness of all sentient beings, all mother sentient beings, have fallen upon myself. And as for that responsibility, what is the responsibility? Well, responsibility is twofold. First is to remove harm. Second is to accomplish benefit. Remove harm means to remove all their sufferings. To accomplish benefit means to bring about happiness for all sentient beings. The reason why that is so is because all sentient beings equally do wish to have happiness, and all sentient beings equally do not wish to experience or to want sufferings. So in such way, through such linked way of thinking, one then thinks in all three realms of samsara, all kind mother sentient beings, may all their sufferings and the causes of suffering be removed. May all the causes, together with the result of the sentient beings' afflicted mind, be freed from them, and may they attain happiness and the causes of happiness. And I myself alone, if necessary, am determined to undertake that responsibility to be able to achieve those twofold welfare of all kinds, mother sentient beings. So the best one, please, therefore, needs to think in such a way.
Oh yeah, that 남자. 현재 상마담자 동화 얘기 담자다 잡아 주마로 자와 소시에 삼바데 되게 gen세 공수. 내와다 내를 주 탐자다가 맞아 쇼나 시마로. 담마 교시에 삼바데 되게 삼바 공수. 나한테는 인사 난다데 되게 정나 삼바데 라와자와당. 정월 쇼스는 말라자와 삼레 마도 바시 산자는 모습 판독하게 조용 말와. 내가 인사다 몰음 자와다 라와자와 삼라 마자파. 아니 저와 나갈린 그 토네 타이베 선도서 삼바다서 동아 탐자다 대화 탐자다 맞아 나랑 거다 그렇게 또 와서 마지막 탐문도 나랑 그 그렇게 또 와서 마지막 탐문도 내가를 많이 동아서 그때 볼라 봐봐 나신 근데 선도서 상마 탐자기 동아서 그때 말하는 빠샤스 나 그때 밥을 신도 다들 그걸 맞춰봐야지 랑고 칸돈 전 제와이나 근데 자와 세세 탐자기 좀 제일 내서 주로 왔다 랑잇 말을 타체기 내서 드는 그런 좋은 뉴스 봐
然后有讲到，就是说刚才讲的苦跟苦因，就是期望希望我们就是从苦跟苦害当苦跟苦因当中能解脱希望，然后同时也还愿，就是说能离开，这个就是慈心的这个修慈心的这个方面了。然后呢，就是说我们想，就是说一切有情如父母尊生，快乐跟快乐的因就是希望就是他们得到快乐的因，然后呢，法愿能圆满这个快乐的因，这种事情叫悲心嘛，这就是修这个悲心的方法。那这两种呢，就慈心和悲心这种的修法呢，只是我们心中只是发愿，这是一种愿望，然后呢发愿而已嘛，期望非常有希望，然后呢就也是同时在发愿，不过不是实际的。那这时候我们进一步的思想呢，我们进一步的要去调整。不但有这种的愿望，而且这个责任呢，是我一个人来承担，就我要实现一切有情中的利口得乐的这种的事情呢，我来去实现，而就是说一个老妈妈就是母亲照顾母亲的责任，我一个人承担嘛，这种心态。
Just now what had been mentioned in that, to which the sufferings and forces of all kind mother sentient beings to be removed, to be freed, that is the manner of meditating on compassion. Then there, to wish that all kind mother sentient beings may have happiness and causes for happiness is the manner of the way of doing meditation on loving kindness. There, then it is followed by making an aspiration that may all kind mother sentient beings actually may have happiness free of suffering, which in the four immeasurable context we interpret is the immeasurable joy. And if one does that, that is merely in aspiration, but in actual reality, have all sentient beings been removed from their sufferings? Have all sentient beings been with happiness? No, they have not. So it is only at aspirational level. So then one needs to bring one's benevolent thinking or caring thinking for all sentient beings at next higher level, which is to bear on oneself that I am prepared to take the burden, to take the load of actually making happen the removal of sufferings and cause of suffering and achieving of happiness and the causes of all sentient beings. Also, in matter of fact, when mother's problem and sufferings are to be removed, it is the child's rightful responsibility to do so. So one needs to think that I, the child of all sentient beings, have the right, have the responsibility now falling on me, on my due responsibility to work for the welfare of all sentient beings. Opposed or contrary to that, if one thinks and does one step to manage one's own matters and things, and to look after oneself alone and manage oneself alone's welfare, if one goes like that, then there is an expression that one tries to make oneself street smart only by yourself, or in another context to make oneself pass the queue, jump the queue only for yourself. If one does in that manner, then what happens is all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas would be very embarrassed, would be not delighted at your behavior. Not only that, your behavior and thinking becomes of the lowest, the meanest type.
그래서 타임이 삼전에서 상마 탐사 동화 탐사다 자와 대화 탐사다 말은 그렇게 해봐 캐릭터와지 제긴 동화 탐사를 말하는 거 토바지 제긴 대화 탐사를 말하는 거 그거 토바지 제긴 내가 제 토바다 나가 잡아서 제 탐사 신기한 것도 항상
然后就是这边有就是有目标啊，就是说，如果就是说不管一切有情中间的父母，然后自己自立的话，这是一个非常没有道德的嘛，就是对这个佛菩萨都给他们丢脸嘛，就是这么一个行为来，就是说就是非常自私自利的思想。这进一步就是说把一切有情众生，一切有情父母众生，你苦得了，你苦脱离这个苦跟苦因的责任。 我来去承担，然后呢，给他去快乐不快乐的因全部给他居住的这种责任，那是我一个人去实现。然后呢，这种的思想呢，就是说在进一步就是说能实现这种的愿望呢，就就是咱们要是能就把就是说伤逝一切诸佛菩萨嘛，就尽快加手的相续嘛，早日能实现这种的愿望。
So in such a way, entire, infinite sentient beings, all of their sufferings and causes of sufferings to be removed, all of their happiness and causes of happiness to be achieved, I alone would be prepared to do that, and may all lamas, teachers, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas kindly bless me to be able to do so. This level which one has reached then is called the exalted thought, which in popular English interpreted translation is as well these days seen translated as the universal responsibility thought. In the literal translation, it's called the exalted or the superior thinking.
所以我一个人承担，这个就是说这种的我来去承担，这就是真善一乐嘛，由一个人来扛。
我呀，到老三节，套接差我，套接是用来他们接，套接差呢，到我呢，用来他们接的着，另外他们接的，有的嘛，苦切人，套接差，或者切汤干的切的嘛，是呢，他也别上家的说什么，他们就原来他也别。原来他也比上的上节去广播了，不头发是凶了。那你懂吗？他们在打仗，台湾他们在打仗嘛，是对用的都。上节成员对军队他们用数策划，原来去查他们用数策划。我等着人说，那什么的说什么？他们上节去广播了，不头发是这嘛，不头发是嘛，结果他们都，那个什么他们在上节广播了，不头发是这个人也是差劲。像这帮你想懂，确实要对。
然后就是有讲到，就是说一切有情众生啊，这种托底啊，离苦得乐的这个承担，我一个人去我一个人来去承担嘛，那就是真常一乐的这种心。还有就是说，一切有情众生真正离苦得乐的是什么样的境界啊？就是佛陀成佛。那么一切有情众生能得到佛陀的果，能成佛的话，那么就是真正的就是说。可以离苦得乐，因为佛就是说除掉一切的自利他圆满，就是除掉所有的一切的缺点全部圆满的彻底的灭掉了，然后功德圆满的这种，那就是最高的就是真正的离苦得乐的境界。所以呢后面有讲到就是这些完全不就是说发菩提心就是为利他法菩提。
So through exalted thinking, through exalted thought, one has made the decisive determination to bear the responsibility of the welfare of all sentient beings. Now, as for manner, how should one bear that burden? To bear the manner, how should one bear that responsibility? Well, as for that, it is this way that one needs to achieve the state of Buddhahood, the state of enlightenment. Why that is so is because Buddha, or enlightened being, is someone who has all portion or all aspects of forms being freed of, and who has all the excellent qualities of mind achieved. If one, that being the definition of Buddha enlightenment, then if one is able to achieve such a state, one would have all the capability to accomplish sentient beings' welfare. One would not have any lacking of form within one's mind that would otherwise bar or create an obstacle for achieving of that. Therefore, the wishing to attain the Buddhahood for the welfare of all sentient beings is the manner of one's meditation and thinking. So far, one please needs to try to develop, and this very much suits, or this very much goes hand in hand with the scriptural Abhisamaya Alankara definition of the Bodhicitta, where the first line says the generating of mind is for the welfare of others.
Oh yeah. 等待前呢，现在上业碰碰都什么套接完了，对，现在上过接吧，印度接吧，现在上过接吧，什么人毛多，说了，那深圳他就上业碰碰了，我头要跟着把油把它爬上一下，深圳请给这样的呢，他先把些土门都，说样的呢，我嘛头嘛是人家是也有的，这么多嘛是娘人找全把的说了样的。深圳他才不往回门都，他请不了，他对就归上去才把他说了呀门都。那深圳他在上业结果嘛，让我对不对？他当着把恰用手做嘛，而且这些呢，商业嘛都门都。那人家当年深圳他们上业结果嘛，让我头发就结完了，让你上业结果嘛头发是嘛就嘛他们， 당의 상식이 고는 도도바지 제기 어때래가 말씀 좀 주지.
然后就是我们讲到，我要把一切有情众生都要给他们成佛。那我们有发这样的愿，那当然我们有这样的愿望，然后我们有这种的心里面的这种力量的这种有强烈的这种愿望。不过呢，就是说有这种的愿望，不过呢，就是目前呢，我们根本就是没可能就是说一切有情众生给他们成佛，不要说一切有情众生了，就是说一个众生我们也没办法给他成佛。然后呢，不要说一切有情众生了，现在呢自己本人也是没办法自立嘛，自己都还没办法照顾自己，你看自己都还在轮回寻找，所以然后呢要知道自己的途径，然后呢就是说不要说自己好像就是一个阿罗汉，得到阿罗汉的果，他也没办法就是众生给一切有情众生给他们成佛。不要说阿罗汉了，得到了这个大乘的这种已经进入了这个十道里面的，悟了这个五道里面的这种，啥呢？就是说道本地已经开始入了这个五道的实地里面的这种正在进行修正，上了这个菩萨的上这个菩萨道的这种的菩萨也没办法度化一切有情众给他们成佛所以呢，就这时候为了一切有情众生就是说全部我要给他们成佛，所以这样的原因呢，就是我要精进的去修，然后从这样一个防护，一定要尽快我要得到去成佛，度化众生，我要得到尽快的方法，最快的方法我要得到佛的佛，是这么意思。
Now, so far, when one has done the thinking in those ways, it is mere a kind thought. It's mere good thought. It is mere good thought, but it doesn't have any power to be able to actually actualize an actual achievement. So it is, in a way, mere expanding of the willpower, bravery of one's mind as regards all sentient beings. In actual reality, not only to mention about accomplishing of welfare of all sentient beings, even one is not able to look after oneself alone, one person's welfare. That is how, in actuality, it is. Not only that, for instance, the arahants of the healers and the solitary realizers path, even they do not have the capability to accomplish the welfare of all sentient beings. Not only that, the bodhisattvas who have achieved higher realization of Brahmans, even they do not have the capability to accomplish the welfare of all sentient beings. Therefore, it is only when someone has achieved or attained Buddhahood, the enlightenment of the mind, that in that state there is the full capability, full ability to be able to remove the sufferings of all sentient beings, the causes of the sufferings of all sentient beings, and to achieve the ultimate happiness, to lead all sentient beings towards Buddhahood. Because of such reason, then one thinks, I therefore must achieve the state of Buddhahood. And this really then is the topic of this morning's teaching, the introduction on generating of bodhicitta.
What the name is that? And they get the Arazo than the Nazi, Semsi Kevina. And I get the son of Potumeva, Saya. The Potumeva, Taya. A Carrera Sena. Some gen and Solo and Sama, and some on the son of Mohammed Angela. Some Jare, the Potumeva, Sandusi, the other Demon worship. That's also one magic, for so one magic to some one hour do not. As a children, 1 hour do not. I can't hear over 1 hour to sit out 10 hours, some so then 1 hour noise, 1 hour to the new city. Here, 1 hour to tell you, Taru or some. There's some good in it, some Jana Pambacheva is. Son of Pombe Dangaris and Sanji Sumi Hodis. They saw some Jana, they live with the bottom member, Sandwich and that. Some Jana Potu, never, no, I touch the tower. There were touched the number. 제 중나 삼이 생각에는 하여 간데서 연구 많이 했어. 저 먹고 말이 저.
然后就是说我们保持一个这么一个慈悲这种的一个菩提心中的非常大的愿望，然后这种思想能保持的话呢，就是说我们可以就是说除掉无量的这种业障，然后累积无量的这个功德，不是什么就是说因为有这么一颗心的话就可以了，然后就是可以实现这样。然后呢，就是有讲到佛祖，就是讲到一个人比如说不要说一切有情众生，而且旁边有一个人头痛的说，这个人看他头痛，希望他的头痛尽快好起来，这么一个一个很小的一个慈悲中的一个善良的心，可以累积无量的这个资粮活动，就是为一个众生发慈悲，也可以累积无量的这种资粮那么就是说，一切有情众生对他们成佛这种的心这种的大慈大悲，就是说我们消除的业障的累积的资粮是非常好的。
So whatever has been explained ahead, if one accordingly then tries to develop such a thought, one then accordingly tries to generate such a thought, the benefit or the result would be one would achieve immeasurable, unfathomable amount of merit, one would have unfathomable amount of negativities and obscurations purified. These two are very true because in Bodhisattva Chara Avatara, there are lines at verse which in meaning says if one thinks of removing the pain on the brain, meaning on the head of one single person, if there is a great benefit, then not to mention about the merits and benefits in wanting to remove the sufferings of all sentient beings. Now, according to that advice from Bodhisattva Chara Avatara, let us say, for instance, amongst you, if your companions or the neighbor person or friends have a headache, that you as well may or may not have headache, but if you, with a great kindness in your thought, wishes all my companion, my friend, my neighbor, he or she has a headache, oh, how painful, and with such concern, if you wish him to be free of the headache suffering, it is mentioned that there will be so much merits and so much merits gained and so much of a fast negative karma purified by your such kind thought. If that is so, then how not to mention about if one has such a thought towards all sentient beings for the removal of their sufferings and attainment of their happiness. This was what Buddha has called the benefits.
semke yongso mojo chewa de mojo che sawa yens mojo che sawa yens da semke choge lensu se de da choge ko ne choga chewa ma do ba ji da da rang semke ya da rang ke ko yo semke se de da shema do ba ya ke ya ma do ba ji de lo su ke lo ma era yens da semke choga lensu de Ambo Shavala, Yalodumba, Shona, Yalodumba Sarsamante, Yalodumba Orita, Nail de Robin Gunton Lena, Robin de Monsemta Damarmazat, Judo da Damasico, the Lensiloro, Dama Monsemta Damatan, Jusenta Dama in the Purchase of one. Robin the Mena, Sanjita, Janju 我从头顶跟着那连来这个也是连上给个对吧？他连包被刚上的，结婚证蛮小了，那个老乡才话就过的也是，他大概就插上去，我做起来嘛，我真的是过的也是，他这话的感觉是什么？这话的感觉是我也得知道呢。
然后就是讲到，就是说我们发菩提心，发菩提心，还有这菩提心的这个。 怎样去发菩提心的这个过程呢？刚才已经讲过了。然后接下来我们要讲的就是这个仪轨方面的怎么样受这个菩萨戒，就是怎么样发这个菩提心的这个仪轨怎么念诵。那就是说里面的内容呢，其实是刚才前面讲的一模一样的了。那么就是说我们要收这样的戒的时候，肯定 有这个圆菩提，还已经进入了这个行菩提这样一个师父面前去念诵这个就是说我们受这个菩萨戒这个仪轨念诵，就是前面有这个七支法，然后这样念诵下来，然后我们就说我就是当由这个行菩提这个行愿菩提跟行菩提当这样的去受嘛。然后假如没有这个三支师的话呢，我们也可以佛堂面前，就是佛陀的身口意的这个象征前面，我们就可以自己念诵，然后受这个发菩提心。
So that finishes the introduction on way to training on generating of bodhicitta and enlightenment mind. And excuse me. And amongst you, if regularly in your daily practice, if you wishes to generate bodhicitta, generate the enlightened mind, then you should please try to meditate and think in a way to translate third person Cancer has currently explained. So in that way of meditating. Now, if a person is formally going to take bodhicitta or bodhicitta, bodhisattva or bodhicitta, generating enlightenment through rites. Rites is the technical word, rites and rituals in that sense, to the formal way of taking the bodhicitta, mind generation. Then first requirement is the feel the presence in whose presence one takes the vow. And as for that, if it is a case where from whom one takes the vow is a teacher, meaning an acharya, which is the original word for moppen. If it is a moppen, an acharya teacher, then it should be someone who himself or herself abides by both bodhicitta, the aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta. And translated third person, His Eminence Cancer is such a kind of teacher who fulfills these two requirements, so one can take a vow from such a standard to qualified kind local teacher. And then in the case, if you are going to take the vow where there is no present live local teacher, then you may take in the presence of a representative of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That is the requirement in terms of faith. And as for the requirement in terms of your thought, meaning your motive, the word actually is thought for technical people. As for the requirement of the thought, at least it should be a practitioner who have done training on all the subjects of numbing, covering up to the intermediate capable practitioners' range of practices, range of teachings.
然后就是说我们要受这种的发这种的菩提心呢，当然就是一定要这个下至道果、中至道已经完成，这个基础上才可以升起这种菩提心。就刚才前面所讲的，就下至道、中至道讲完。就是我们受这个戒的时候，我们要念诵这个七支法。七支法有长的跟短的嘛。那当然你们长的不会念诵，就说他就会你们就更多念这个短的嘛，大家更多念。那我们更多念的时候呢，就要在虚空中即有对面一切诸佛菩萨，就是说活生生的诸佛菩萨在我们的对面。就是说有讲到，就是你在佛祖你在哪里观想，他就会在哪里，就会出现在哪里。所以呢，就一定要有信心，佛祖一切。 法的 A 就是要升起这个，我们要起这个菩提心，这样的。
So those were the other requirements. Now, as for the preparatory or the preliminary part to the taking of bodhicitta vow, and the enlightenment vow, it should be started. The preparatory or preliminary part should be started by doing the 7 limb practice 3 times. And as for the 7 limb practice to be done 3 times, if you were to do on the basis of the extensive version of the 7 limb practices, most of you would not be able to follow because you would not have learned by heart the extensive version of the 7 limb. Therefore, here it would be okay to do the abridged or the short version of the 7 limb practice, which needs to be repeated 3 times. And before one does the 7 limb practice, one needs to then visualize up in space as demonstrated the entire multitude of the presence of the enlightened being and bodhisattva. Now there is a quote of the Dharma saying that in whoever has the purity of a faith, in the presence of that person, the Shakyamuni or the Buddha appears. So the Buddha appears. Whoever has the purity of faith, to that person, in its presence, the Buddha appears. So in accordance to that saying, it would be wonderful if one visualized the presence as one to one's faith and belief. If one really thinks that they are there, then it would work, and one needs to think that in their presence, in front of them, I'm going to take and receive the vow.
Oh yeah, I love them that you know go to you. Jen Kapar Chana, the Nebuson, Mayusun, you and Shouts out. Then Chopa Pavas, Sawa, Shushin Shabanos. Then Shabachia, Shabakio, and said the Pashiva and Zavachia. And then Gavacheva, the Lashis and Macheva. Then some work or Kua, Yaman and Sawatawa. Then he gets out Josan Dumoa, if the water they allowed to know.
然后我们念诵七支法，七支法叫做知道，就是说，顶礼，然后呢，顶礼供养，然后就是忏罪，然后随喜，